what did you make of that LA City Council? This was a meeting at the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, where amongst Latino politicians in LA, Ron Herrera, who was president of the Los Angeles County Federation of Labor, Loury Martinez, who's president of the LA City Council, a number of other elected officials in Los Angeles County, discussing the upcoming redistricting dynamic of city council district lines being drawn and lapsing into various kinds of racist speech, secretly recorded and then posted at Reddit, and now the subject of wide discussion, with President Biden having called for the resignation of prominent Los Angeles Latino politicians. I'm just wondering what you make of that. I mean, that's more than just yelling out the N-word at a basketball game.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much in that episode.
And excuse me, I just want to add, everybody involved is a, quote, person of color, close quote. So it seems to reveal something about the intra-minority group political dynamic as its power competition playing out in Los Angeles area politics.
Mm-hmm. You know, that was a rich episode. You could almost do a movie in that it was all very ordinary. I mean, how many of us of color have not heard or maybe even said that white kids aren't as well behaved, that Black and Latino people in particular kind of keep a rein on their kids? I will openly admit that I actually say it in my book, Losing the Race Way Back. I say it's very rare to see a Black kid running up and down the aisles in a plane. And I said, it is. I'm sure it's happened, but I would say that there is a tendency in terms of that upbringing style. And I would be very open to somebody telling me I'm a racist for thinking so, but that's ordinary. Calling a Black kid a changuito, a little black monkey, that is tough. But I'm sure that is said among a great many Latino people of many levels of life when nobody is looking, because there's a difference between neutral life and what's considered humor, what's considered group membership, these sorts of, stand-up routine sorts of things. And then it's funny just where we've come. The Black kid in question is the adoptive child of a white man they're talking about. And the white man talks about how upset he is in the news this week that they singled out his child who was just exhibiting Black kid energy, Black child energy. Well, what's Black child energy? This is coming from somebody who's supposed to be the hero. So Black people have energy. Well, what does the white kid have? Intelligence? Even that one. Which means that we're expecting people to be perfect in a way that I'm not sure what the purpose of it is. So yes, those people had a conversation that you can practically hear people having on the subway sotto voce in New York every day. It's unfortunate, but humanity is unfortunate in some ways. And the larger issue there is I can kind of understand that they want Latino power in the same way as Irish and Italians wanted Irish and Italian power 100 years ago. It's tribalism. So it's there. It's unfortunate, but I wasn't surprised. There are conversations like that being had all over the country. I would love to hear some Black council people talking, for example, here in New York City. That's just the way humanity, unfortunately, is. And so, yeah, I am poo-pooing it. I understand why, when it's exposed, those people can no longer be in office. Yeah, if we're gonna be able to play it over and over again. But I'm not surprised that's just the way they talk behind closed doors. My question is, to what extent does it hurt anyone if they do? And Black or Latino or white? And I'm not sure what the answer to that question is, but that's the question I would ask, not just whether they're impolite.
And I thought it exposed, in terms of the coalition of non-whites, fissures that are maybe a harbinger of things to come. I don't live in greater LA, but my impression is that the shift in relative influence of the Black versus the Latino, Hispanic populations there is well advanced now, and Blacks are on the short end of the stick in that regard. And, the happy face representation of non-whites all being on the same page is kind of exposed as a fallacy in that regard. Everybody there's a Democrat, but a lot of Hispanics, and we've been reading this in the commentary on the upcoming election, may not be voting Democratic in the same way that they have in the past. Exposing the LA incident, exposing fissures in that regard, those fissures perhaps being a harbinger of a deeper political disunity within that coalition, and that could have electoral consequences. That was the substance of my comment.
It's a tough one, partly because amidst those comments was the one about, well, he's with the blacks. The blacks.
Yeah, exactly. That was Gascon. They were talking about the LA district attorney there, and I don't remember exactly what the context of that evocation of him was, but the reaction was, he's with the blacks.
Mm-hmm.
Which means there are the blacks, and then there are us, and he's with the blacks.
Right.
There ain't no people of color happy talk down there in Los Angeles. It's, you with us or you with the blacks.
And, one of the fissures is among Latinos who talk like that is that, quote unquote, the blacks have an idea that we're supposed to be exempt from the rules. And we get into what you often refer to more than I do as the riots in 2020 and the idea that that sort of thing is okay. That's a much less popular idea among Latino activists, that racism means that anything we do has to be understood within historical context. And so my sense, I don't know about Loury Martinez, et cetera, but my sense is that the reason she might nod when somebody talks about the blacks is because of, I'm going to date myself, this kind of Maxine Waters-esque way of looking at these sorts of things, where she was dancing with gang members. I'll openly admit this is now 35 years ago. But that sort of thing. So no, you can't have that colorful coalition when you have that kind of fissure. And I'm suspecting that that's part of what would create someone saying something like that. Now, is it partly just pure tribalism and bigotry, a la Charles Blow? Sure, that's part of it. But I think part of it is also that we tend to tell Omar something different than they would tell Raphael. And I think that matters.
Flesh that out a little bit. What is it that Raphael is hearing that Omar is not hearing?
Omar is told that anything that he does has to be understood as part of the historical context of structural racism and even outright bigotry in the way he's treated by the cops. And so it's not a riot, it's an insurrection. Or at least that's the way people discuss Omar. I'm not sure how much Omar's ear is cocked to listening to the message himself. But in terms of a Latino person who came up hard and hasn't had advantages, there's much less of a conversation saying we've got to understand what he did and pardon it because of the difficulties that Latino people have in this country. My experience with most Latinos is that even on the grassroots level, there is, I'm going to get in trouble for saying this, but there's more of a sense that you make the best of things despite the racism. That's not to say that there are no Black people who feel that way, but in academia, I'd say it's about the same with Black people and Latino people. Once you get out onto the street, there is a stronger sense among ordinary Latinos that you just have to play ball. You've got to play ball. That is my sense. Whereas there's a sense that Black people have been given, and I think have been given. It's something that trickles down, and it's a process that I would love to investigate. I always say I'm going to, and I don't. But I think the Black street is encouraged to think you can only expect so much of us because of the nature of the past. And perhaps our past is especially different because our ancestors were brought here as slaves, although it gets to be that was rather a long time ago. And Latinos suffered from what you might call Jim Crow almost as much as we did. But still, do you know what I mean? That there's the meme that we're not responsible for ourselves beyond a certain point, which say an immigrant culture is less likely to have. It's partly the immigrant difference.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was thinking that Latinos are immigrants, and the sense of entitlement betrayed by telling your misbehaving kid that you didn't do anything wrong, the system is all against you, or making excuses for violent criminals that are preying in your neighborhood by saying it's racial capitalism that's at the root of the problem or whatever. That kind of rhetoric is less likely to be encountered in a population that is substantially an immigrant, first or second generation population for obvious reasons. I was thinking that. Are being told, riots. You say, you don't say riot as much as I do. Well, why not? I mean, riots are riots. I mean, there were protests and there were riots. It's very easy to make a distinction between those things. And in the face of rioting, the admonition, go back to your house, you're breaking the law, we're zero tolerance for your looting and your violence, might have had a different impact on people's behavior, or maybe not. I don't know. Were politicians cowardly and opinion leaders, journalists, and so forth cowardly for not more vigorously denouncing that behavior? Are they cowardly in the face of high crime rates now in inner city communities around the country for not more vociferously denouncing the despicable, behavior of these people, holding them accountable? Is that law and order? Is that Willie Horton 2.0? I'll stop. But we were talking about hoaxes just a minute ago, and there are lots of different levels at which a hoax can be perpetrated. You can say they hung a noose outside my dorm room when they maybe didn't, or they shouted the N-word at me when they maybe didn't. Or you can allege that a political candidate campaigning against the high rates of crime is a racist because he's practicing Willie Horton code word dog whistle politics, when in fact all he's doing is standing up for law and order, which you should have been doing in the first place. Or you can say that when Georgia changes its election laws and Stacey Abrams doesn't like it, it's Jim Crow 2.0. You can say that from the White House briefing room, when in fact it's no such thing as Jim Crow 2.0 as court reviews of the legislation and the subsequent voting behavior of the people subject to the legislation demonstrates. So hoax, there are the small scale hoaxes, and then there are the mega hoaxes.